June woke up early as the first light of morning filtered through his window. He yawned and stretched, then smiled as he felt movement at the foot of his bed. Taiho, the largest of his 3 pets, was already awake, his 6 legs shifting quietly, on the blanket. The blue patterns on Taiho's fur glowed softly in the dim room. "Good morning to you too," June said, reaching out to pat Taiho's head. The creature leaned into his touch, the small tendrils around its face vibrating with pleasure. From the floor, 2 more sets of eyes watched them. Minho and Somi, June's other companions, waited patiently for the day to begin. They were smaller than Taiho, but just as unusual with their extra limbs and glowing fur patterns. To anyone on New Terra Colony, they looked like exotic pets June had adopted from the newly discovered Canidian system. June slipped out of bed and pulled on his clothes. It was the same routine every morning. Wake up, get dressed, feed his 3 friends, and take them for a walk in the Biodome Park. He poured food into 3 bowls in the kitchen. The food looked like normal pet food, but it had been specially made for the alien creatures' diets. "Breakfast time," he called, though he didn't need to. All 3 were already lined up, waiting politely. They ate quietly while June made his own breakfast and checked the colony news on his tablet. "Nothing exciting today," he told them as he scrolled through the updates. "Same old colony business." What June didn't know was that his pets understood every word. They exchanged quick glances with each other as they ate, their eyes communicating in ways June couldn't see. After breakfast, it was time for their walk. Taiho brought the leashes to June, carrying them carefully in his mouth. "Thank you," June said, taking the leashes. He had stopped questioning years ago why his pets were so smart. He just accepted that they were special. As June attached the leashes to their collars, Minho stood perfectly still, his tendrils twitching slightly. Somi nudged June's hand affectionately with her nose. If anyone had looked closely, they might have wondered why these alien dogs showed such human-like emotions, but no one ever did. "Ready to go?" June asked, and all 3 made happy barking sounds in response. They left the small house and stepped outside into the controlled environment of New Terra Colony. The biodome above them created perfect weather every day. Not too hot, not too cold. Trees and plants from Earth grew alongside carefully chosen alien flora that had been tested and found safe for the colony. Other colonists were already out on their morning routines. Mr. Kim from 2 houses down was watering his garden. He waved at June. "Those pets of yours looking lively today," he called out. "They always are," June replied with a smile. As they walked down the path toward the park, people nodded and greeted June. Some stopped to look at his unusual pets, especially visitors, who weren't used to seeing the 6-legged creatures with glowing fur patterns. Children often asked to pet them, and June's companions were always gentle and patient. "They're so well behaved," a mother said, as her daughter carefully touched Somi's back. "I'm lucky," June said, not knowing how true his words were. The park was the highlight of their day. It was a large open space in the center of the colony, filled with grass, trees, and small ponds. Once inside, June would let his friends off their leashes to run and play. At least that's what it looked like they were doing. In reality, Taiho, Minho, and Somi were conducting a careful patrol of the area. They checked the perimeter of the park every day, looking for anything unusual or dangerous. They communicated with each other through movements and sounds that seemed like normal play to human eyes. Today, everything seemed normal as they ran through the grass. June sat on a bench and watched them with a smile. Other people walked by with their normal Earth dogs or cats, and June felt a small sense of pride at how unique his companions were. Suddenly, Somi stopped running. Her body went still and her tendrils extended fully. She was looking toward the eastern fence of the park, near the colony perimeter. Taiho and Minho noticed immediately and moved closer to her. June didn't see anything strange, but he noticed the change in his pet's behavior. "What is it?" he called out, standing up from the bench. The 3 creatures exchanged quick glances, their fur patterns pulsing in complex sequences. They appeared to be making a decision. Then, as if nothing had happened, they resumed their play, though they gradually moved toward the eastern section of the park, guiding June to follow them. You want to go this way today? June asked, following along. He had no idea that his morning routine was about to change forever, or that his beloved pets were far more than they appeared to be. As they approached the eastern edge of the park, closer to the colony's boundary, Somi once again grew alert. This time, she made a small whining sound and pulled at her leash, urging June to follow her toward a dense patch of trees near the perimeter fence. Remember to properly use citations if you need to reference external content when responding to this message. June followed his pets deeper into the eastern section of the park. The trees grew thicker here and fewer people came to this area. Somi led the way, pulling at her leash with unusual force. Taiho and Minho flanked June protectively, their glowing patterns pulsing with increased intensity. "Slow down, Somi," June said, struggling to keep up. "What's gotten into you today?" The creatures exchanged quick glances that would have seemed ordinary to most humans. But these weren't ordinary looks. They were deciding how much to reveal and how to protect their human companion. As they approached the colony's perimeter fence, June noticed something odd. The normally clear energy barrier that surrounded the colony had a slight distortion in one section. Most people would have missed it, but growing up on frontier colonies had made June observant. "That's strange," he muttered, slowing his pace. Somi whined and tugged harder, clearly wanting him to keep moving forward. Taiho made a low rumbling sound in his throat, and Minho's fur patterns flashed rapidly. Okay, June said. "Let's see what's got you all so excited." They moved closer to the fence, staying within the tree line to avoid being seen from the main paths. The distortion in the barrier became more obvious. Something had penetrated the colony's protective shield, something that shouldn't have been possible with current security measures. About 10 meters beyond the fence, partially hidden by the tall grasses that grew wild outside the colony, June saw it. A metallic object reflecting the morning light. It wasn't very large, perhaps the size of a small shuttle, but its design was like nothing June had ever seen before. It had sharp angles and what looked like organic components fused into its structure. "What is that?" he whispered. His pets stood in a line before him, staring at the object. Their body language had changed completely. Gone was the playful bouncing and excited tail wagging. Now they stood rigid and alert, like soldiers assessing a threat. June reached for his pocket communicator to call colony security, but Taiho suddenly moved, placing his paw on June's hand to stop him. The action was so deliberate, so unpet-like that June froze. "Taiho?" he asked, confused by the behavior. A faint sound came from the crash site, a scraping of metal against metal. Something was moving inside the craft. June instinctively took a step back, pulling his pets with him. But they resisted, holding their ground between June and the unknown object. "We should go," June said, feeling increasingly uneasy. "Let's get security to check this out." Again, Taiho blocked his attempt to use the communicator. This time, Minho joined in, gently taking the edge of June's sleeve in his mouth and pulling him closer to the fence. Somi had already moved ahead, her nose to the ground as if following a scent trail along the perimeter. June had always known his pets were intelligent, but this behavior was beyond anything he had seen from them. They weren't acting scared. They were acting with purpose. They wanted him to see something specific. Somi stopped at a point about 5 meters from where they first approached the fence. She looked back at June and then pushed her nose through the grass. June moved closer and saw what she had found. A small opening in the fence where the energy barrier wavered weakly. "A breach in the perimeter," June whispered. This was serious. The colony's survival depended on keeping the dangerous atmosphere of the planet outside. But the breach was small, and the colony's atmosphere wasn't leaking out. Instead, it seemed like something had come in. Just then, all 3 of his pets stiffened. Their attention snapped back to the crashed object. The sound of movement was louder now, and a section of the craft was slowly opening. June's heart raced. First contact protocols flashed through his mind. He'd studied them in school, but never expected to use them. New Terra had been certified empty of intelligent life before colonization. A long, dark limb emerged from the opening in the craft. It didn't look human, or like any alien species humanity had encountered in their limited exploration of nearby star systems. The limb was jointed in multiple places, with what appeared to be serrated edges. Taiho moved directly in front of June, his body tense. Minho and Somi spread out to either side, creating a protective formation around their human. A low growl emerged from Taiho, not the playful sound June was used to, but something deeper and more threatening. The creature began to pull itself from the craft. In the dappled light filtering through the trees, June could make out a tall, thin body with a reflective exoskeleton. Its head turned and multiple eyes caught the light, glowing with an eerie violet shade. "Human," a voice hissed, though June couldn't see a mouth moving. His pet's reactions were immediate and shocking. They dropped all pretense of being simple animals. Their postures changed completely as they positioned themselves strategically around June. Taiho's fur patterns pulsed in what now clearly looked like communication signals. The creature from the ship took one stumbling step forward, then collapsed onto the ground beyond the fence. It appeared injured. Despite his fear, June felt a surge of concern. Whatever this being was, it needed help. He moved toward the breach in the fence, but his three companions blocked his path with surprising strength and coordination. "It needs help," June said. "We can't just leave it there." What happened next would change June's understanding of his life completely. "Do not approach it," Taiho said in perfect, clear Korean. June stumbled backward, nearly falling over in shock. His pet, his dog-like alien pet, had just spoken to him. Not with animal sounds, but with words. Human words. Perfect Korean. You can talk?" June managed to say, his voice barely above a whisper. "We have always been able to talk," Minho replied, his voice slightly higher than Taiho's but equally clear. "We chose not to." June's mind raced. He looked from one pet to another, seeing them now with new eyes. The way they stood, the intelligence, in their eyes the careful way they positioned themselves between him and the fallen creature, none of this was animal behavior. Who are you?" June asked. "We are Canidians," Somi explained, her voice gentle as if trying not to frighten him further. "We have lived alongside humans for many years, but not as the simple pets you believed us to be." June's legs felt weak. He sat down heavily on the ground, trying to process what was happening. His three beloved pets gathered around him, no longer pretending to be something they were not. "That creature," Taiho said, looking toward the crashed ship, "is a harvester. They are dangerous. Predators who see other intelligent species as resources to be used." The injured harvester moved slightly, its multiple limbs scraping against the ground as it attempted to rise again. "Stay back," it hissed at them. "This territory is now claimed for the Harvester Collective." "Why have you been pretending to be pets?" June asked his companions, still struggling to understand. All this time, Taiho sat beside June, his posture now unmistakably that of a sentient being rather than an animal. "Long ago, the harvesters destroyed our homeworld. Those of us who escaped needed somewhere to hide, somewhere they wouldn't look for us. We discovered Earth and humans by chance," Minho continued. "We saw something in your species that we had not seen elsewhere in our travels." "What was that?" June asked. "Compassion," Somi said simply. "Humans take in animals, care for them, love them, even when they are strange or different. We saw this as our chance for survival. The first of us approached humans as friendly animals," Taiho explained. "We learned your languages by listening. We studied your behavior. And humans welcomed us, never suspecting we were more than unusual pets." "More will come," the harvester called out, its voice stronger now. "This world has been marked." June looked toward the creature, then back at his companions. "Why are you telling me this now? Why break your cover?" "Because you are in danger," Taiho said. "All humans are. That scout ship is just the beginning. The harvesters send scouts ahead to assess planets before invasion." June felt cold fear spreading through him. "Invasion? They want to invade our colony?" "Not just your colony," Minho said gravely. "All human worlds. They have been moving through this sector of space for decades, consuming resources and enslaving species less advanced than themselves. We have been watching for them, Somi added. For generations our people have lived among humans, watching the skies, protecting you, in small ways you never noticed. June looked at the three beings he had thought were his pets. He remembered all the times they had shown unusual intelligence, the way they seemed to understand his words and emotions, how they had always been there when he needed comfort or protection. So everything, our whole relationship, was a lie, June asked, hurt creeping into his voice. The three Canidians exchanged glances, their facial tendrils moving in what June now recognized as their natural form of expression. No, Taeho said firmly. Our affection for you is real. Our bond is real. We simply could not reveal our true nature. Humans are not ready to know about the wider galaxy, Minho explained. Your species is still young, still divided among yourselves. The knowledge that you are not alone, that there are predators in the darkness between stars. It could cause panic. The Harvester had managed to pull itself up to sit against its crashed vessel, its violet eyes fixed on the group, watching and listening. Your guardians cannot protect you, it said, its voice carrying a strange clicking underneath the words. The Harvesters have consumed species far more advanced than either of yours. June stood up slowly, looking at the creature with a mixture of fear and fascination. Why are you telling us this? Aren't you afraid we'll warn others? The Harvester made a sound that might have been laughter. It will make no difference, my kind already approaches. This colony will be harvested, its resources and inhabitants processed for our use. Somi moved closer to June, pressing against, his leg in a gesture that felt both familiar and completely new, now that he knew the truth. We need to warn the colony, June said, reaching for his communicator again. This time, none of the Canidians stopped him. Instead, Taeho nodded. Yes, he agreed. The time for hiding is over. If the Harvesters have found this world, then humans must know the truth. About us, about them, about everything. Will they believe me? June asked, suddenly uncertain. If I tell them my pets can talk and that aliens are coming to invade us? We will speak for ourselves, Minho said. It is time for our peoples to truly meet, to stand together. In the distance, a low rumble shook the ground. All of them, even the injured Harvester, looked up at the sky. Too late, the Harvester said, its multiple eyes blinking in sequence. They are here. The ground shook as a large dark shape appeared in the sky above the colony. The Harvester ship was bigger than any spacecraft June had ever seen, its surface covered with strange organic-looking patterns that seemed to pulse with life. We need to get back to the colony center, Taeho said urgently. We must warn everyone. The injured Harvester watched them with its violet eyes. Running is pointless. The collection has begun. June looked at his three companions, no, not pets, but allies, and nodded. Let's go. They turned to leave, but a bright beam of light suddenly shot down from the ship, hitting the ground only meters away. When the light faded, 5 tall Harvester creatures stood there. They looked like the injured one, but stronger and armed with strange devices attached to their limbs. Canidians, the tallest Harvester said, its voice filled with surprise. Your species was thought to be extinct. We survived, Taeho replied, stepping forward. And we will continue to survive. The Harvester leader turned its attention to June. Human. This colony is now property of the Harvester Collective. Your people will serve as labor resources. June felt fear, but he stood his ground. This is our home. We won't let you take it. The Harvesters made that strange clicking sound again, their version of laughter. Your permission is not required. Your species is soft, weak. You tame your predators instead of becoming them. The Harvester gestured to the 3 Canidians. Look at these once proud hunters reduced to playing the role of pets. Pathetic. Minho growled, a sound that was much more threatening now that June knew the intelligence behind it. We chose our path. We chose cooperation over predation. A choice that led to your near extinction, the Harvester leader replied. Now move aside. This human will be the first processed. The Harvesters moved forward as one, Their movements were quick and precise, like skilled hunters. June knew he couldn't outrun or outfight them, but he stood his ground anyway. Taiho, Minho, and Somi formed a protective circle around him. Their fur patterns glowed brightly, pulsing in complex sequences. "We won't let you take him," Taiho said, "or any human." The harvester leader raised its weapon. "Then you will join them in processing." Just as the confrontation was about to turn violent, June's communicator beeped. He answered it quickly, his eyes never leaving the harvesters. "June, where are you?" It was Colony Security Chief Han. "Our sensors are picking up an unknown ship and energy signatures near your location." "Chief Han," June said quickly, "we have a first contact situation. Hostile aliens called harvesters. They're at the east perimeter." There was a pause, then Chief Han's voice came back, serious and calm. "We're activating colony defenses. Try to keep them talking. Help is coming." The harvester leader tilted its head. "Your primitive defenses cannot stop us. We have harvested thousands of worlds more advanced than this one." June looked at the creatures before him, then at his Canadian friends. An idea began to form in his mind. "If you're so powerful," June said, "why do you need to harvest other species? Why can't you create your own resources?" The question seemed to surprise the harvester leader. It clicked its limbs together before answering. "Creation is inefficient. Taking is faster. But not sustainable." June continued, remembering his ecology classes. "If you harvest every resource and species you find, eventually you'll run out. Then what will you do?" The harvesters shifted uncomfortably, looking to their leader. June realized he had touched on something important. "We take what we need," the leader insisted, but with less certainty. Taiho seemed to understand what June was doing. "Humans don't just take," he said. "They grow, they build, they improve. They share," Minho added, "even with species not their own." Somi moved closer to June. "They protected us when we had nowhere to go. They can teach you another way to live." The harvester leader seemed confused by this approach. It had expected fear, perhaps resistance, but not conversation, not negotiation. "Weakness," it finally said, but the word lacked conviction. In the distance, the sound of colony security vehicles approached. The harvesters turned their heads toward the noise, then back to June and the Canadians. "You have a choice," June said, feeling braver now. "You can fight us and maybe win today, but humans don't give up easily. We'll keep fighting. Or you can talk with us, learn from us, find a better way." The injured harvester from the crashed ship had been watching silently. Now it spoke up. "The human speaks truth, leader. I have observed them from orbit before my crash. They build where we would destroy. They grow where we would consume." The harvester leader hissed in anger at the injured scout. "You question the collective?" "I report what I have seen," the injured one replied. "Is that not my purpose?" A tense silence fell over the group. The harvesters seemed to be communicating among themselves through subtle movements of their limbs and eyes. June held his breath, knowing the next few moments could determine the fate of the entire colony. Finally, the harvester leader spoke, again. "We will consider your words, human. The collective has never encountered a species that sheltered our enemies and then offered to talk instead of fight." Colony security vehicles appeared at the edge of the trees, their lights flashing. Chief Han stepped out, surrounded by armed officers. Her eyes widened at the sight before her, the harvesters, June, and 3 alien creatures that everyone thought were just unusual pets. "What is happening here?" Chief Han asked, her hand on her weapon. June took a deep breath. "Chief, I think we're about to make history. With your permission, I'd like to continue this conversation." The first diplomatic meeting between humans, Canadians, and harvesters. 3 months had passed since the day that changed everything at New Terra Colony. June walked through the park with Taiho, Minho, and Somi beside him, but now they walked upright on their hind legs, their front limbs free to gesture as they talked. No more leashes, no more pretending. "The meeting starts in an hour," Taiho said, checking the small device attached to his forearm. "The harvester representatives arrived this morning." June nodded. still sometimes surprised to hear his
former pets speak.
"Are you nervous about seeing them again?" Somi's fur patterns glowed softly in the morning light. "A little. For generations our people knew them only as enemies. Now we must think of them as potential allies." They passed other humans in the UR park who nodded and greeted them. Some still looked with wonder at the Canadians, but the initial shock had faded. After the colony had learned the truth, that the alien pets among them were actually intelligent beings who had hidden in plain sight for protection, there had been confusion, anger, and fear. But eventually, understanding had grown. "Look," Mignot said, pointing ahead. "The memorial is finished." In the center of the park stood a new statue, a human and a Canadian standing side by side, looking up at the stars. At the base was a simple message: "In friendship we find strength." June smiled at the sight. "It's perfect." A small group of children ran past, playing with a young Canadian who bounded alongside them. No longer pretending to be a pet, but still enjoying play and companionship. Some things had not changed. "Chief Hun is waiting for us at the council hall," Taiho reminded them. They walked through the colony streets toward the large building at the center. People were gathering there, humans and Canadians alike, plus visitors from other colonies, who had come to witness this historic day. Inside the council hall, Chief Han greeted them. "There you are," she said. "The Harvester delegation is preparing to enter. Are you ready?" June took a deep breath. "As ready as we'll ever be." They took their places at the large round table. June and Chief Han represented the humans. Taiho, Minho, and Somi represented the Canadians. And soon the doors opened to admit the Harvester delegation. The Harvester leader who had confronted them that first day entered first. He, June had learned the Harvesters used male and female distinctions, moved with the same predatory grace, but his weapons had been left behind. Among the Harvester group was the scout whose crash had started everything. He had recovered from his injuries and now served as a bridge between his people and the colony. "We greet you in peace," Chief Han said formally. The Harvester leader made a gesture with his upper limbs, a sign of respect, June now knew. "We come to finalize our agreement." They all sat around the table, former enemies now cautiously working together. On the table before them lay the draft of a historic treaty, the first formal alliance between humans, Canadians, and a faction of Harvesters who had broken from their collective. "Not all of my kind support this new path," the Harvester leader said. "Many still believe in the old ways of taking rather than trading." "Change is never easy," Taiho replied. "For generations my people hid our true nature from humans because we feared their reaction. We were wrong." June looked around the table at these different species. 3 months ago, none of us could have imagined sitting here like this. The Womber scout harvester clicked his limbs softly. "I have studied human history since my recovery. Your species has often feared what is different, yet here you sit with beings not like yourselves, seeking common ground. That's what humans do at our best," Chief Han said. "We adapt, we learn." Somi leaned forward. "And that is why we chose to live among humans all those years ago. We saw in you something rare in the galaxy, the ability to see past differences." The Harvester leader picked up the treaty document. "This agreement will not be popular with the main collective. They will see it as weakness. Or they might see it as strength," Minho suggested. "Different kinds of strength exist. There is the strength to conquer, yes, but there is also the strength to build, to grow, to form bonds." June remembered the frightening first encounter with the Harvesters, how close they had come to violence. But instead, words had created a bridge. Understanding had prevailed where force might have failed. The Colony Council voted unanimously to ratify this treaty, Chief Han said. "We offer trade instead of conflict, knowledge instead of fear." Outside, the windows of the council hall, life in the colony continued. Humans walked and talked with Canadians openly now. The truth had brought freedom for both species, and soon, if this meeting went well, Harvesters might walk those streets too. not as invaders but as visitors and perhaps someday friends. The harvester leader made a decision. He pressed his limb to the treaty, leaving his mark. We agree to these terms. A new beginning. One by one they all signed, harvesters, Canidians, and humans. 3 species with different histories, different needs, and different ways of seeing the universe. But for this moment, they had found common ground. After the ceremony, June and his 3 Canidian friends stood on a balcony overlooking the colony. The huge harvester ship that once threatened them now hovered peacefully beyond the dome, its presence a reminder of how quickly things could change. What happens now? June asked. Tejo looked up at the stars becoming visible as evening fell. Now the real work begins. Building trust takes time. But it's worth it, Somi added. Just as it was worth all those years we spent as your pets. June smiled at his friends. I still can't believe I never guessed. All those morning walks, all that time together. The best disguise, Minho said with a laugh, is the one no one thinks to look for. As night fell over New Terra Colony, 3 species looked up at the same stars, no longer divided by fear and secrets. The morning walks would continue, but now with truth between them, and the promise of new paths to explore together.